If you didn't already know, Jim Harbaugh is a famous football coach. He's also a devout Catholic. In a recent podcast interview with National Review, he said that he didn't believe the timing of the COVID-19 crisis was by accident. Here are his actual words. As I said, God has virtually stopped the world from spinning. I don't think it's coincidence. My personal feeling, living a faith-based life, this is a message, or this is something that should be a time where we grow in our faith for reverence and respect for God. Although I totally agree that God is using this crisis to somehow bring about a greater good, especially as he does with all suffering, an eternally greater good, if Harbaugh is suggesting that God orchestrated COVID-19 in order to bring this about, I have to respectfully disagree. As I've said before, God doesn't cause suffering, he redeems it. Yes, God is sovereign. Yes, God is in control. But free will was his idea. He gave it to us in order to bring about his ultimate will, to have beings capable of genuine love. And as Genesis 3 insists, evil and suffering are exclusively the result of sin, of our abuse of this precious gift of free will that he's given us. They're never directly caused by God's intervention. Especially at a time like this, especially with a disease, especially with what philosophers classify as natural evil, it's easy to lose sight of this. However, this passage from Genesis 3 reveals one of the most basic and fundamental truths about God. He is never responsible for evil. He never directly causes our suffering. He only allows it so as to bring about a greater, and especially an eternally greater, good from it. As I've also said before, we can't even begin to imagine how God eternally is going to transform all our suffering into an infinitely greater good. However, at times, we can see how God is using suffering to bring about a greater good in our lives right now. And here's where I think Harbaugh is on to something. The world has indeed virtually stopped spinning, and that's been incredibly painful. But it's also yielded some surprising benefits. As Harbaugh goes on to say in his interview, people are praying more, they're showing more concern for one another, they're talking more about the sanctity of life. In fact, I think there are three profound ways that this crisis is having a positive effect on us that will last long after the crisis is over, if we take advantage of the opportunities they're providing. I'll talk about one this week and then the other two in next week's blog. First, when we heard that we were going to have to shelter in place, we felt a collective sense of dread about being stuck at home. Aside from having nothing to do, many of us, even though we love them dearly, wondered how we're ever going to survive all this time with our families. And while it's been challenging, and while I'm fully aware of some nightmarish exceptions, like I'm thinking of the rise in domestic and child abuse, or thinking of people who are all alone and are suffering a kind of solitary confinement right now. For most people, it hasn't been that dreadful at all. From what I've seen, most people are enjoying this opportunity to spend more time with their families immensely. From playing games at home, to hanging out in the yard, to going shopping for essential goods, to taking the daily recommended walk. People seem happy, they genuinely happy. They're smiling and holding lively conversations and seizing the opportunity to take more time to be with their families. There's one example that sticks out for me. A couple weeks ago, I was going for a jog in a local park, and I saw a father playing tag with his two young children. They couldn't have been happier. They were running around and giggling and smiling from ear to ear, including the father. I'm totally guessing here, but I suspect that he isn't normally able to do this with his children. Most of the parents around here where I live have to get up early in the morning before the crack of dawn in order to catch the train into the city. And then they don't get home until late at night. In modern America, we've made an idol out of work, a cult out of being busy. We used to set aside one day a week for Sabbath. Blue laws made sure that everything was shut down, so we were forced to slow down. And that gave us the opportunity, it afforded us the opportunity to spend more time with our families, to relax and to recreate and to recharge. As a result, our lives are far more balanced and therefore healthy. This crisis is forcing us to take a prolonged Sabbath rest. It's giving us the opportunity to enjoy more balance in our lives. While the challenges we've experienced during it have been real and difficult, it is allowing us to spend more time with our families and to recreate, relax, and recharge in what has been an all too hectic pace of life before. For those who haven't been afforded this opportunity, for the essential workers, this crisis has also made us very much aware of how much we rely on them and how thankful we should be for them. Let us never take them or their heroism for granted again. Just imagine for a second what it will be like when we finally work our way out of this crisis. And we will, hopefully sooner rather than later. One day things are going to return to normal. When that happens, just think about for a moment what you will miss most about this time. I'm willing to bet that one of the things you're going to miss most is that extra time you've had to spend with your families, that extra time you've had to recreate, relax, and recharge. In the wake of 9/11, I remember so many people vowing to spend more time focusing on what really matters in life. I'm afraid that didn't last. But we're being given another opportunity. And so please, God, I pray that we will be intentional about every week to getting an injection of this Sabbath rest into our lives, because I think one of the profound ways God is making a greater good out of this crisis is if we seize it by restoring more balance to our hectic lives. So, what good do you think God is bringing out of this crisis? Or do you think that there's no good that can possibly come out of this crisis? I'd love to hear what you think. You can go to the Contact EJ page of the Raising Jesus website and leave your comments there. May our risen Lord, who brought new life out of the tomb, reveal to you the good things that he wants to bring out of this crisis for you.